Back now with more on those high-stakes national security meetings in New York at the UN this week. And we're joined by Congressman Devin Nunes, chair of the House Intelligence Committee. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. You listened to Ambassador Power's interview. She seemed to agree that the training of Syrian rebels is not working, but seemed to think the anti-ISIS campaign is. Do you agree?
Well, the Congress has been very skeptical of the administration's plans and policies that they've been laying out for several years. Reluctantly, we approved this training regime training operation last year, and we've been trying to have updates and upon updates, and every time the news is bad. And what's happening here is this is a lot like a Vietnam containment strategy, and they've had a containment strategy for ISIS and radical jihad within Iraq and Syria, and it's destined to failure. And it's failing on every single measurement that you look at.
So do you trust the intelligence you're getting? There is right now an IG investigation into intelligence that Central Command is putting out. Some of the analysts there apparently complaining that Central Command is painting a rosier picture. This is the military. This isn't a political body. Are you trusting that intelligence?
Well, when you look at what happened over the last few years, and you look at what happens when our members in Congress, we go to these places, we travel there, we meet with analysts on the ground, we meet with people within the intelligence community. And I will tell you, it's been a little alarming that what we see on the ground, and then when you look at the final product and you look at what the president has been saying, and then you look at the policies he's been implementing, it really makes me wonder, is it the analysts that are actually getting the intelligence wrong, or is it being politicized somewhere in the process?
And what do you think we should do about the Russian buildup of military aircraft in Syria?
Well, this is what happens when America doesn't actually put forward a strategic plan to deal with this problem. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, they are on the move in Syria, and that's what people aren't talking about.
So what should we do?
I think that Putin has now moved in thousands of troops, dozens of airplanes, as you just said. And, the only solution now is going to be why aren't we dealing with Putin? He backed rebels in Ukraine last year that shot down an airliner that killed 200 people. Assad is a brutal dictator. Putin's not very far off from there.
Should President Obama be meeting with him?
I think, look, it's always good to have dialogue, but you're going to have to, at some point, draw some real red lines in the sand. Now the danger is, you ask me what are the solutions? Look, I don't know what you do now. Putin has said he's moving in troops, something that they didn't even do in the Cold War. He has a forward operating base. He's projecting power. Assad, barring some kind of suicide bomber attack, Assad, now how are we ever going to get this bad guy out of power? So now you have two bad guys, and don't forget, the Iranians are working directly with the Russians and Assad.
And there are reports this morning that the Iraqis are working with the Iranians, the Russians, and sharing intelligence with Syria. Do you know whether that's correct?
Well, look, I think it's long been known that many within the Iraqi government, going back to Maliki, work closely with the Iranians. This is one of the concerns when we didn't leave any type of capability in Iraq, that the Iraqis were going to look to Iran for help.
But what about the Syrians? Are they sharing intelligence with the Syrian?
Well, I'm not sure what the Syrians, what intelligence they would have, but clearly it's in their best interest to work together because they want to go after ISIS and Al-Qaeda affiliates also.
And the New York Times is reporting this morning that 250 Americans have tried to get inside Syria to join up with ISIS. That's up from 100 last year. Are you confident that we can track all 250?
No, I'm not. The FBI director came out several months ago and said that he has investigations going on in all 50 states. And this has long been the concern about fighters that go into Iraq and Syria, get trained, and then have a Western passport and get back either into Europe or into the United States.
And you believe they could get back into the United States?
Absolutely. And I believe they're already getting back into Europe.
And let's move to cybersecurity. President Obama and China's President Xi took steps toward a cybersecurity agreement, saying that it includes a promise not to engage in theft of intellectual property. Is this a good first step, and do you trust him?
Well, it's always good to talk. It's always good to put something on paper. Look, we know the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, they are committing cyber crimes every single day. It's nation-state actors, going out and stealing information for economic purposes. So we know that's what they're doing. They're going to continue to do it. I don't think there's anything other than just words on paper, and I doubt the Chinese are going to stop what they're doing.
And Mr. Chairman, Boehner, John Boehner, you've been a member of the Speaker's very close-knit group. What's your reaction to what happened this week?
Well, I was a little surprised, I think like most of us were, but being Speaker is a very difficult job. It also makes it very difficult when you have the largest majority in 80 years that the Speaker led us to, but at the same time you have one of the most left-wing presidents, and President Obama, in the White House. It makes it very difficult for things to get done. And so you can understand why you see the left, who has President Obama in the White House, and you have the right, who believes that we have a supermajority or a 247 members in the House. They want to see things get done.
Will things get done now quickly?
Look, hope springs eternal.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Chairman.